Членом которой является Макс, они его значит, признали за члена группы, чем он гордится, поскольку 25 лет уже сотрудничает с музыкантами. Он говорит, что записывать музыку румбы стали кубинскую только с 1947 года. До этого нет никаких записей, соответственно, мы не можем точно говорить ни о чем. Вот. Поскольку она считалась народной грязной, что ли, музыкой.
And when the Muñequitos started playing, they were just playing for fun in their neighborhood in Matanzas, but they were so good because they had two dedicated conga players who were basically redefining how to play the rumba, especially rumba guaguancó. Those two were a guy named Goyo and a guy named Cha-Cha. Yeah? They are known under those names, Goyo and Cha-Cha. And they founded the group. They have both since passed away.
Надо сказать, что Muñequitos начали играть как дворовая группа только для себя и своих соседей, но потом из-за того, что у них в группе были два очень таких целеустремленных музыканта, Гойо и Чача, они смогли как бы изменить вот основы игры румбы гуагуанко. Ну и прославились под вот этими именами. Сейчас они уже оба умерли, как бы.
And they were so dedicated to playing their specific parts that they created a whole new sound that everybody loved. And their recordings became really famous really quickly in 1952. And that's why Los Muñequitos was founded officially in 1952. Their official name wasn't Los Muñequitos. They were just called Rumba Matancera, originally, Rumba Matancera, when they put out their first record. But then the B-side of this first record was a tune called Los Muñequitos. And that song became a super hit all over Cuba. And after that song, everybody just referred to that group as Los Muñequitos.
Ну, надо сказать, что да, вот эти вот два целеустремленных перкуссиониста, да, смогли своим стилем завоевать сердца любителей румбы настолько, что они привнесли вот свое слово в игру на румбе, и группа сама, она и не называлась Los Muñequitos de Matanzas, просто румба из Матансас. Как бы существует два типа румбы. Матансас — это вот лесная часть Кубы, вот. И они выпустили хит, да, Muñequitos, и по названию песни их стали называть Los Muñequitos de Matanzas, и основным годом образования группы считается 1952, как раз когда вот эта песня стала хитом.
And Los Muñequitos actually means the comic strip in the newspaper. It's the little jokes and the little funny comic strips and jokes in the newspaper that you have on Sundays. That's called Los Muñequitos, and the song was about that. And now the group is called Los Muñequitos, but nobody cares. That's just it's the way it is. So to answer your question,
yes. Thank you.
Goyo and Cha-Cha decided when they were playing that they wanted to have more room for improvisation. And the phrasing boom bing bing boom bing boom didn't give them enough freedom. So they started using the other phrasing, going gung ging ging gung gung ging gung. They felt like they had more space, more freedom to express themselves with the three side open. And then, there would be more improvisation on the three side, and then the drums would answer. And they did that so well that after the Muñequitos, everybody started doing that. So the Muñequitos changed that phrasing since 1952-53.
Ну вот Гойо и Чача, они хотели в ритмическом смысле получить больше свободы, отвоевать за счет сдвига вот этого основного бита. И как Макс нам сейчас продемонстрировал, да, получается, что больше возможность для импровизации и для творчества получается при втором использовании ритма. И после того, как они стали применять вот этот новый ритм с 1952-53, он завоевал сердца многих, и все вдруг повально начали играть именно вот в таком стиле, со сдвинутым вот этим третьим ударом.
Правильно ли нужно понимать, что они же были первые, кто стал использовать румбу как эстрадно-джазовую форму?
Эстрадно-джазовая форма.
Ну, не совсем.
Эстрадно-джазовая.
In English, Stradno jazz.
Yeah, should we consider Munikitas as the founders of the official jazz Latin direction
Using
of
rhythm of
play
rumba
In the
on stage?
music and songs.
Well, I wouldn't say they're the founders of Latin jazz, no.
No. In one dance school, guys asked me why and when it happened when rumba became from Yoruba culture, it became to stage, to pop stage, to song culture, to song culture.
Okay. Well, rumba was always street music, and it was always considered ghetto music, yeah? Because it was black people music. So in Cuba it was not accepted. It was considered, as I said, dirty music, and if you played rumba in a white context, in a white dance hall, you were kicked out. Yeah? That was still true until, roughly the 40s, when finally some researchers and musicologists like Fernando Ortiz and people like that started writing detailed books about the history of this music and showing the academic world the depth and the multi-dimensionality of Yoruba culture, and all of a sudden people started waking up, including the white people, realizing, oh, this is not really dirty music, this is very deep music, and we should actually be proud of it. That's when things changed a little bit, started changing in the 40s. And then with Arsenio Rodriguez, you had somebody who then incorporated the rumba instruments, the congas, in a traditional son ensemble. Arsenio was the guy who did that first. He wanted to incorporate, first of all, the sounds of the jazz big band, that he had heard in New York. So he added more trumpets. Traditionally in son, it was just one trumpet. One singer, one trumpet, and then maybe two guitars and a little percussion. But Arsenio wanted to have more jazz sound, so he added 4 trumpets instead of 1. So he had more the sound of a trumpet section. And then that changed the volume level of everything. And in order to keep the energy up, he added conga drums, which were traditionally not in son. In son, traditionally, it's just bongo. Bongo and clave and maracas, that's it. It's very light. And congas changed that vibe totally. But the muñequitos didn't really have anything to do with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. So the muñequitos have a lot to do with the development of rumba, and over the last 60 years, because they were so famous, they had a lot of influence on the world, and the acceptance of rumba in the world. And they did many collaborations with many different groups all over the world, including with mine and the whole tap thing that they do because of me, because we met in New York. But as far as Latin jazz is concerned, they're not the founders of Latin jazz. I don't think they would claim that either, definitely.
Но вот вопрос был, каким образом румба, да, как такое преисторическое начало, да, отразилось, да, вот в современном понятии танцевальной культуры, да, культуры сальсы и латин-джаза. Но вот Макс говорит, что Muñequitos сами, они не являются создателями латинского джаза, существуют другие имена, Вот. Но они своим влиянием, конечно же, и сотрудничеством со многими группами, которые действительно принадлежат к этому направлению музыкальному, многое привнесли новое. Потому что вот до 40-х годов и на самой Кубе вот эта румба, музыка, она считалась недостойной, грязной, черной. И в танцзалах, да, там, где для белых, да, то есть музыканты, если бы они начали играть румбу, то их бы, конечно, сразу попросили бы. Но исследователи, когда начали исследовать корни румбы и доказали, что румба является историческим наследием, в общем-то, кубинским, они внимание всего мирового сообщества обратили на глубину, многослойность этой музыки, на то, что это не просто какая-то дворовая, да, что-то такое недостойное, а то, что действительно это народная культура, достойное изучения, которой следует гордиться. Вот. И Фернандо Ортес,
Fernando Ortiz, the
Фернандо
writer.
Ортес, он первый стал записывать, значит, в нотной записи и публиковать вот эти вот, скажем, мелодии румбы, да, и публиковать свои исследования об этом. Вот. И уже в Нью-Йорке, да, Арсенио Родригес, он изменил, скажем так, вот состав бенда, сон, значит, они играли сон, и традиционно сон играется один певец, одна труба, он добавил духовую секцию, сделал 4 трубы для того, чтобы добавить драйва, и конги, в общем-то, они не использовались в традиционном сон-оркестре, это были только бонго, маракасы и клавы. Да? Соответственно, после добавления конг это тоже привнесло совершенно новое такое вот измерение, да, в ансамбле, которые играли традиционную музыку. И получилось так, что вот родилась сальса и латинский джаз. Да? А уже муникитас, поскольку они были очень популярны, да, популяризировали румбу, в общем-то добавили, да, вот такой вот свой, ну, оттенок всему этому развитию вот, джазовой и сальсовой музыки. Хотя, ну, не они являются основными, да, создателями латинского джаза.
I would also add really quickly that Arsenio Rodriguez is also responsible for the first time Yoruba language was actually used in a recording in Cuban music. That was not the case before Arsenio.
When was it?
This was, I think, like 48 or 49, around the same time as Rumba was recorded. And Bruca Manigua is the song. Bruca Manigua, everybody should know that song if you don't. It was the first time that somebody used actual Abakwa language and Yoruba language in a pop song. Before that, that was basically forbidden. But Arsenio was so successful, he just decided to do it, and it was a huge hit. Because all of a sudden people felt like, oh, he speaks like I speak. You know, this is my language, this is my music, this is my song. You know, they felt really touched, and he became very, very popular because of that. And after that, basically every dance song in Cuba, almost ever recorded, has some sort of Yoruba language in it.
I got a question. What you would like to drink? Because it's alcohol lesson.
Alcohol lecture.
Don't you forget about it.
I'll have beer option.
Something strong alcohol, or Porto, or
Whoa, okay.
rum.
For some reason we don't have beer.
Okay, I'll take a rum then, sure, why not?
Cool.
Since we're talking about Cuban
cool.
music.
Yes.
This is very personal question.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
It's our Casa Latina tradition. Alcohol lecture.
Alcohol lecture,
Yeah.
okay.
Значит, ну вот Арсенио Родригес был человеком, который первым использовал язык Йорубы, да, в поп-песне, и песня стала чрезвычайно популярной. И он, в общем-то, произвел взрыв, такой переворот, можно сказать, в поп-музыке. И с тех пор многие артисты стали в большей или в меньшей степени использовать язык Йоруба. И, в общем-то, многие кубинцы говорили, о, это я понимаю, этот язык, это мой язык. И, в общем-то, было такое вот оживление, да, всей культуры в связи с этим.
I'm going to try to pull up on YouTube Bruca
Название песни,
Maniba.
да, вот у Bruca Maniba название вот этой песни. Ее, в общем-то, знатоки должны знать.
Arsenio was a Bakwa member.
Yes.
As far as I remember.
Да.
Almost every major musician in Cuban history was an Abakwa member. Abakwa is so connected to Cuban music, you can't really separate it. Yeah?
Но здесь речь идет о том, что Йоруба это является языком религии Абакуа, африканской. И, в общем-то, вот Макс говорит, что многие известные музыканты, которые играли традиционную кубинскую музыку и использовали язык Йоруба, были членами Абакуа.
Do I need to talk about Abakwa?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. This is going to be a very long session.
Можно вопрос сразу? Йоруба и Абаква это один и тот же самый язык?
It's Yoruba and Abakwa is not the same thing.
I mean the languages.
The languages, no, it's not the same. Not the same. Okay, let me pull up the music really quick. Yeah.
Ну вот был вопрос, Йоруба и Абакуа это один и тот же язык. Макс сказал, что нет. Найдем нам песню.
Не Анигос, это Абакуа, они из Калабара, а Йоруба из Нигерии, ну приблизительно. Сейчас это говорят так. Да. Можно поставить здесь еще вот.
Можно по
Alright,
рядам,
so-
Феденька.
Сходите, пожалуйста, посмотрите, это из Абакуа.
Если прикоснуться лбом к картинке, то если слух станет понятен.
Это неземная цивилизация, короче, из региона Калабар.
Okay. So here's Bruga Manigua, yeah, just so you.
И донцом.
He sings about being Karabali, Calabar. This is where the Abakwa are from. Chenchele Bruga Manigua. Yeah? Nobody had ever dared to record that. Quote of stormy weather. Direct quote. That's how close American music and Cuban music are. So it's in the style of danzón, but with conga drums and with trumpets. That was also unusual, very unusual. We have elements of big band music, American big band music in this.
Вот вы могли заметить, что здесь присутствуют и элементы музыки Big Band, да, и что была цитата из фильма Stormy Weather, то есть и джазовая музыка, да, традиционная, принадлежащая американской джазовой культуре, тоже сюда включена. И сильная духовая секция, и конги здесь, что было непривычно.
Марина, а можно еще раз название композиции?
Бруга Манигуа.
Bruca with a C, Bruca Manigua.
Do you know what is it? What does it mean?
Not exactly, actually.
Но это Yoruba, это...
Well, no, this is Bruca Manigua is a Abakwa language. Yeah?
Да, там вот
I don't know exactly what the
одна
translation
из
is.
первых фраз, вот он поет, что я из Калабари. Из региона.
Kalabari, yeah,
Да.
yeah. So, but to quickly talk about Abakwa, Abakwa is sort of an African version of what in Europe are the Freemasons. Is everybody familiar with the Freemasons? You know what that is? A secret male society, all men, secret. They meet regularly. Mason, yes, that's it. The Masons, yeah, Mason. Yeah, and almost every major scientist, musician, politician in Europe was a Mason, including the United States founding fathers. Yeah, if you look at a dollar bill, it's full of Mason symbols. Yeah? The triangle, the masonry, the hammer, all these things. Yeah? And so you can think of Abakwa as the African version, yeah, of the same concept. A society of men that are helping each other, are supposed to support each other, and they gather regularly. And in the case of Abakwa, from the Calabar region in Nigeria, they are basing their strength and their energy on their ancestors. So they have pictures and representations of their fathers, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers in their loge where they meet. There are lots of signs, Yoruba signs. A lot of them look like the circle with the cross through it that I talked about in class, the cosmogram, yeah, with the arrows. Yeah. Sometimes things are square with dots, but you see a lot of arrows, you see a lot of circles, yeah? And that's basically like a secret language, code language.
Ну вот Абакуа — это как тайное братство, сходное с масонским братством, которое было популярно в Европе. И можно сказать, что только для мужчин, соответственно, многие музыканты, известные деятели, ученые, они принадлежали вот к этому братству. Соответственно, они собирались вместе, да, и поскольку они почитают, у них есть культ предков, то вот в этом как бы здании, где проходят собрания, можно сказать, ложа, да, можно найти портреты предков, там, отцов, дедов и различного рода символы. Треугольники, стрелы, круг, в который вписан крест. Вот он говорит, что я говорила об этом на уроке. И масонами, например, были многие, включая даже основателей Соединенных Штатов Америки, да, первые президенты. На долларовой купюре мы видим знак треугольника, в котором глаз, да, и масонские символы — это циркуль, значит, молот, да, то есть поскольку они каменщики вольные, да, то есть все связанное со строительством, да. В нашей культуре полным-полно этих признаков тоже.
Можно просто по Питеру погулять, посмотреть.
Да, на Казанском соборе видим, и так далее.
Okay, I will show you a brief scene of Los Muñequitos de Matanzas playing Abakwa music and dancing, because the costume is very specific. And the costume is very unusual and doesn't look like Yoruba. It's very different.
Сейчас видео он попробует нам показать Абакуа. Оно не похоже, костюмы танцоров, на костюмы, которые Yoruba танцоры носят. Попробуем сейчас увидеть.
Can everybody see? Can you see? Is it reflecting or?
Just
Too small?
the image is a bit small.
Ah, yeah. Let me see. Let me see if they have any close-ups. Yeah, they don't need. Yeah, it doesn't get any closer than this. Yeah.
Это самая приближенная пока что съемка, где можно видеть костюмы.
But it's let me see if
Если кому-то совсем не видно, я думаю, можно встать, подойти, посмотреть поближе, раз такая накладка техническая у нас случилась. Amando Enriquez Abacua.
No. This was I was just playing Los Muñequitos Abacua. Yeah, maybe that's a little closer. Can you see it's like a big hat and black the face, you can't see the face, yeah?
Вы не можете видеть лица, у большинства лица закрыты специальными такими вуалями черными.
Это нетипично.
Is it typical that you cannot see the
Yes. Because when the performer puts on the costume, they stop being themselves and they become an ancestor. Yeah?
Как только они одевают костюм, вот этот ритуальный, они перестают быть самими собой и становятся вот этим предком, как бы, да?
Yeah? So that's why they cannot show their face.
Поэтому они не могут показывать свое натуральное лицо.
Yeah? And this costume is referred to as ireme. Ireme.
Костюм называется иреме.
Yeah? And it's usually like a one-piece suit. Yeah, that you have to wear. It's not separate pants and jacket. It's
Это,
one.
как правило, один такой комбинезон, один кусок ткани, который
Like
не
overall,
одевается
like
по
an overall.
отдельности, а вот в виде комбинезона сразу раз одевается целиком.
And then you, in the back is the hood, and you have to put that on. It's all one piece.
И сзади еще
One piece.
капюшон, который ты одеваешь на лицо.
Yeah.
И всё
And the
одним куском.
movements are very specific. Yeah. These. Yeah. Very specific movements, and every movement has a meaning.
Каждое движение имеет свое значение, все специальные движения,
Also, it's like
символические,
a secret language.
ну как секретный язык, как код.
Yeah.
So what does it represent? What this person wants us to know?
Um,
Where it is done?
Well, this is one of the ancestors communicating with his peers, with his brothers in the society, yeah? And he is saying something that only the people in the society can really understand, yeah? by way of movement. And often there is more than one. Sometimes there's only one person dancing. Yeah?
Ну вот в данном случае можно сказать, что это как дух предка, который общается с прихожанами, да, с членами общины, и только члены общины понимают, что он этим языком хочет им сказать.
Yeah. But usually the reason for the performance is that the Ireme wants to express their joy that people came out to see this tradition. Yeah?
Но, как правило, основной смысл вот этого танца заключается в том, что иреме выражает радость, что члены общины пришли на вот эту встречу, собрались вместе на встречу с духом предков.
Я прошу прощения про Абакуа. Люди, которые танцуют, ничего не хотят сказать. Они хотят скрыть это скрытый язык. Они никогда никому ничего не рассказывают о том, что они танцуют. Обычно, то, что Макс говорил, специальные символы рисуются на земле, и люди танцуют с разными штуками, вот прямо вот на этом рисунке.
Вплоть до воткнутых ножей там.
В том числе, я не знаю про ножи, но однажды я скачал PDF случайно. И там был вот вызов дьявола какого-то. В общем, короче, в Вуду почти то же самое. Там есть крест, есть круг, есть tree, там очень много разных символов.
Древо
И
мировое.
они танцуют с этими символами. И я разговаривал с кубинцами. Они говорят, что большинство кубинцев, конечно, не в курсе, о чем идет речь, потому что это все-таки секретное общество. Они не обязаны никому ничего рассказывать, наоборот. Обычно они закрывают информацию.
У них есть цель.
У них есть цель.
Цель танца.
У них цель такая. Считается, что половина правительства Кубы это абакуа. То есть это просто цель танца у них есть, это общение с предками возможно. И я не знаю.
Это транс, типа, и персональное какое-то общение с...
Мы ничего по этому поводу не знаем. Они никому не рассказывают. Понимаете, цель закрытое общество. Это как, почему масоны? Потому что это как Коза Ностра и как масоны. Это что-то похожее, среднее, но причем завязанное на религии и основанное на общении с предками. Это не просто, мафия. Это не просто мафия. И люди, которые дают абакуа на разных фестивалях, например, танцы, они говорят так: я сам не абакуа, но я видел, как делают это. И дело в том, что в Румбе, Колумбия, там есть очень много мувов, которые из абакуа, но люди это танцуют в social. И когда танцуешь social, там нет никакого религиозного подтекста. И они специально говорят: я танцую это просто потому, что я видел, как так делают. Но я не знаю, что это означает. Потому что те, кто знает, что это означает, уже, наверное, уже там давно глубоко в земле. А возможно, что Фидель Кастро тоже абакуа, никто не знает.
Ой, это не помню до сих пор.
Это, кстати, единственное... Вы видели фотку эту? Это единственное... The only mask culture in Cuba derived from Africa.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, the only mask.
Yeah.
Они вот... Для них это человек, который танцует вот с этим, да, с этим гаравато и с этими штуками, это так воспринимается... Они называют по-испански диаболитос или нянигос. И это духи, в их космогонии. Считается, что они попали в мир людей, они ничего не видят, поэтому танцуют почти слепую, и они, натыкаясь на людей или что-то, когда из людского мира все приходит, они очищают себя от этой скверны, потому что люди им не интересны совершенно. Поэтому там куча мувов, таких там, стряхивают, там, энергетические узлы они очищают. Ладно, пойду.
Пойду почищу.
So, abakua is really that's a theme that you can do a whole, several books on. It's very, very interesting and very important in Cuban culture. Although it's so secret, because it is so secret, it has had so much influence on Cuban history, cultural, politics, economics, everything. Because so many people, black and white. In the beginning it was only black, but even in the end of the 19th century they began incorporating white people. But only men. It's a strictly male society, just like the Masons.
Ну, про абакуа можно, конечно, писать диссертации и книги, да, не один час тут проговорить. Но именно из-за того, что это секретное религиозное сообщество, видимо, поэтому оно вызывало такой интерес и вызывает, продолжает вызывать на Кубе. И в 19 веке, если изначально туда принимали только мужчин и только черных, то уже с конца 19 века стали и белых принимать, но женщин нет.
Next question.
Еще вопросы?
Я по-русски, что ли?
Ну, хорошо, да. Ага.
Можно рассказать, как афро, как таковой, да? Вот Yoruba, Конго, вот эти все штуки, которые мы изучаем, как они на румбу повлияют в его версию? И повлияли ли вообще как-нибудь?
Вы сейчас говорите про какие-то ритмы конкретные?
Про культуру.
Про культуру.
Ну и про ритм, про музыку, соответственно.
So the question is about how Afro culture, Congo culture influenced the music that we are listening and playing and dancing to today.
Rumba именно.
Rumba, yeah.
Yoruba and Congo culture.
Okay. Well, Congo culture was the first culture that had an impact on Cuba because the first Africans that came to Cuba were Congo. So the Congo influence is the oldest, and really, rumba percussion, the rumba music is mostly, especially the drumming, mostly Congo in character. There are also, of course, Spanish elements. The singing, a lot of the singing comes actually more from Spanish tradition, from Spanish folk music. The concept of singing in harmony is definitely not African. That's a European construct that was added, because of the European influence. But in general, you have three major ethnic groups that were brought to Cuba. The Congo were first. Then you had the Ashanti, Ewe, and Arara. And last, but most importantly, the biggest group in numbers were the Yoruba. The last Yoruba were brought to Cuba in the 1880s. Officially, slave trade was not over until 1886 or something in Cuba. That's very interesting. Slaves, first generation Africans, kept arriving in Cuba until the late 1880s. In the US, the last slave ship with first generation Africans arrived in 1806.
80 years.
80 years before. Okay?
Ну, если говорить о том, как африканские культуры повлияли на культуру Кубы, то первые, скажем, переселенцы, рабы, в первом поколении, африканцы, это культура Конго, затем Ашанти или Арара, и самые многочисленные это африканцы племени Йоруба. И на Кубу приезжали, привозили рабов до конца XIX века практически, то есть 1880-е годы. Это последние десятилетия, когда работорговля завершилась, и в первом поколении африканцы перестали туда приезжать. А в Соединенных Штатах последний корабль официально с рабами из Африки приехал в 1806 году, то есть там гораздо раньше все закончилось.
So the Yoruba had probably the strongest impact on Cuban music because there were so many, and they were brought for over a long period of time, and they were the last ones to be there, the last first generation Africans to be there. And each of the ethnic groups had a musical impact, definitely. Most of the instruments that are commonly used are of Yoruba and Congo origin, especially the Conga drums and the Bata drums. Of course, the Bata are Yoruba and the Conga drums are originally Congo. And then the timbales come from classical European music originally. They were originally just timpani. They used timpani in charanga music, in danzón. And then somebody decided, okay, we need to make them smaller, and we cut the bottom off.
Надо сказать, что Yoruba повлияла больше всего, наверное, на кубинскую музыку, потому что оттуда больше всего приезжало людей, и это было самое позднее, скажем, переселение. Изначально в африканской музыке присутствовали перкуссионные инструменты, ритмичность, а уже мелодия и голос добавились из европейской традиции. И если говорить об инструментах, то бата, это из Йорубы, соответственно, стали использоваться, а конги, соответственно, из культуры Конго.
Yeah, again, this just like the Abakwa question. We could keep going for hours. I want to make sure we get to other things. But if you have, specific things, go ahead and ask me. Anything else?
Про тимбалис еще забыла сказать, что тимбалисы стали использовать, это тоже европейский инструмент, от тимпанов, это большой такой барабан, отрезали низ, ну вот, чтобы удобно было использовать, да, потому что они были покрыты мембраной с двух сторон, ну вот, изначально, и стали, значит, использовать вот тимбалис.
Это военный инструмент.
Ну,
Это из военных
то есть,
оркестров.
ну, его носили вот так вот на перевязи, да, и
Обычно на лошадях.
с двух сторон.
С двух сторон.
Летавры.
С двух сторон.
Летавры, это по-русски называется летавры. Они висят с лошади с двух сторон. И человек ногами управляет лошадью и руками фигачит по баре. Да, они пустые внутри. Ну, смотрите, как бы у них дна нет, да. Открытые.
Бездомный.
Here we go.
Стали в дансонах, да, вот.
Let me just show you
Тимбалисы.
traditional, actual Cuban timpani, yeah, that were originally used for danzón. Yeah? So you see what the original timbales looked like.
Макс хочет нам вот эти традиционные тимпани показать, которые использовались для стиля дансон кубанского, из которых потом тимбалис.
По шашкам.
We have a little bit slower internet. So he's playing actual timpani.
Если вы музыкант, то играет на настоящих тимпани кубинских.
Is it the father of timbales?
No, he's not the father of timbales.
Mother.
But his grandfather was one of the.
This is the mother.
Yeah.
Otra parte del danzón era cuando marcaban 5-1, se marcaba así.
Here we go. So, I just wanted you to see the shape, yeah, of
Like a
old style,
bow shape.
like real timpani, like real classical timpani, yeah, like they use in orchestras, yeah.
Это как в классических оркестрах, да, используются в виде котлов, да.
Yeah. And these were brought to the island of Cuba with military orchestras. Yeah? They were mounted on camels or on horses.
Они попали на Кубу вместе с военными оркестрами и на лошадях, либо на верблюдах их поначалу сооружали, играли на них.
Yeah. So the danzón tradition brought in the timbales or the timpani into the rhythmic orchestration of Cuban music. The son tradition brought in the Congolese bongo, the small bongo, which are a little bit more subtle in sound, and then the Congolese rumba tradition provided the congas and the way the congas are played nowadays. And then the Yoruba provided the bata drums, and of course also the bembe drums and the guiro and the yesa. You know, there are several different styles of drums that are all part of Yoruba culture. It's a huge cultural universe, the Yoruba.
What is yesa?
What is yesa?
What do yesa look like?
Yesa drums. Yesa drums they're not shaped like bata drums. They're regular, even shaped, not like this. Yeah, they're so like this, and they're strung with
Like this?
like a little bit, yeah, a little bit like this, but not all of them are as big. I have some photos. I have to search a little bit to find the photos. Let me see, do I have it on here?
Yesa the name of the drums or?
Yesa, no, Yesa is,
Rhythm.
Yesa is the name of the subgroup of ethnic people.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
So they're Yoruba,
That's why.
but the Yesa is a separate tribe
Yes.
within the Yoruba.
Because I've heard about Cabildo's Yesa.
Yes,
Cabildo's
uh-huh.
Yoruba, Cabildo's
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of like a subgroup of Yoruba, yeah, that had their own religion and their own
Tradition.
drumming tradition, yeah, which was not totally different from Bata, yeah, similar, but still a different rhythm and some different songs, and the dancing looks a little bit different. Yeah.
What about Guiro? Is it also
Guiro?
part of Guiro of Yoruba?
Guiro is part of Yoruba culture, but basically Guiro is just born of necessity when you don't have 3 Bata drummers and you only have one guy with one drum. It's easier to find one guy to play one drum and somebody to play a cowbell and then somebody to play a chekere, than to find and pay 3 ordained Bata drummers. That's much more expensive. Yeah? It costs much more to have a full Bata ensemble with consecrated Bata drums. The price of that is much higher than just saying to Fulano, hey, come here, play congas, and I'll play the campana and you play the chekere, and then we basically get the same energy, more or less, and we sing the songs. It's sort of like a low-budget version. Yeah, really.
Guiro sounds much more high because of small things like that.
Yeah,
Sounds higher.
it's
than-
well because basically in Guiro you have just one cowbell and you have the chekeres, and the chekeres make everything sound and then the conga just improvises. The conga drum basically just improvises and everybody sings. So you don't have what you have with Bata drums. It sounds different. It sounds very different. Yeah? But it's very strong all the same. It just doesn't require so much mastery. They don't have to know every single movement of every single orisha. Yeah? They play basically the same groove for all the orishas, just different tempos. Yeah.
6 por 8?
Yeah, depending. Sometimes they switch into faster, but Guiro just means basically not Bata, because we didn't want to spend all that money. I'm a little bit shortchanging it, but that's basically what it is.
Надо перевести.
Yeah.
А можно попросить Макса еще раз сказать про рингшаут и, в принципе, вот про тему того, как танцевали в церквях, и как это потом повлияло на дальнейшее развитие танца?
So there is a question about ring shout,
Yes.
how they danced in churches.
Yes,
and so on.
come right up. Yeah. So,
На самом деле про Бата, скажу вам честно, да, из 21 бога я сломалась на 12-м. Пыталась изучать Бата, ну как бы все 3 партии, да, и потом у них есть еще вариации внутри этих партий, и как бы, ну, после 12 я поняла, что нет, я не осилю.
Курю срезать надо.
I put this document on this hard drive, yeah, for Feder, and you can share this document about ring shout. You can share the document with everybody. Yeah, I wrote some information about ring shout, about minstrels.
And actually, about the song, about what actually is the name of the song?
The name of the song we did in class?
Yes.
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, and actually Feed My Cow. The whole song is called Feed My Cow because we only did the first part. In the second part, she talks about the cow and what to feed the cow, how to milk the cow, and that the cow dies. Yeah.
So that's the name of the song?
Feed my cow. Feed my cow. How to feed the cow.
Feed the cow, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's just briefly watch this.
Okay.
Coastal Georgia, there emanates a haunting rhythm of the past. Its repetition could be long-lost noises that once filled the tabby ruins along the sound, or like the random tapping of a football from big
Where
ivory
does it
against
sound
the
come
dock.
from?
But no,
Куда под ним?
Where to milk the cow?
Я не знаю, где динамик.
Я говорю, под ним.
Вот, ну, мы прям поздно.
Здесь, что ли?
Не самое очевидное.
Центр.
Ну а где?
It's just inside. The speakers are inside.
Не, громче не будет, мне кажется.
It's out from the screen.
Shouting was foremost a religious expression, but its lyrics also talked of
Понятно. Хочешь сам сходи поищи?
It's a slave song where they were talking about being released from slavery.
Come on, get around. Since 1980, this unique cultural exhortation has been performed by the Macintoshan shouters all over the country. On this particular day, the songster and patriarch of the group, Lawrence MacGyver, leads the singing with an old favorite. Then there is the stick man, Benjamin Reed. He taps out the rhythm for each song, rhythm that's born of something more than just staccato and motion. You gotta have the beat. The beat. You gotta have the beat. You gotta have the rap. You gotta have rap. You ain't doing that.
Yeah, if you don't have the rhythm, you have nothing, he said.
Left for the women in the group to give the song its spiritual overture.
It's a simple quote-unquote dance. It's a religious expression. And the thing that distinguishes it from being a dance is that the shouters never cross their feet. Once you cross your feet, it becomes dance. People would be ostracized from church dance.
Okay, did you hear what she said? The shouters never cross their feet because if they cross their feet, they were dancing officially, and then they would be ostracized from church for dancing.
So
Yeah.
dancing is undecent, right?
Dancing is undecent. Shouting was
in the
not.
church.
In the church, yeah.
In
But
the
this is church. This
So
is
they would be
officially.
expelled from the church.
This was officially a religious expression that was allowed. That was allowed by the white people. Yeah, as long as they didn't cross their legs. Yeah.
Even for what?
No, the white people didn't do that.
Never.
Поскольку, да, это религиозное танцевание.
We don't really know, but this
Нельзя
is.
было, да, перекрещивать ноги, если перекрестил ноги, уже ты танцуешь, а в церкви неприлично танцевать. Это правило белыми было установлено.
А как вообще получились такие формы, что как бы, ну я понимаю, что явно смешалось что-то языческое и христианское, но вообще, в принципе, про то, как возникла вот форма, да, вот этой танцевальной церкви. Что-то известно?
Can we say something about the roots of the dance?
The roots of, of this dance?
Yeah, of this dance.
Well,
И вообще это какое-то танцевание в церкви.
Like,
that's what
why
she's.
did they start dancing in church? Yeah.
Okay, the Africans, of course, were not originally Christian. Everybody understands that. Yeah? They were forced to be Christian, and they sooner or later they did accept that because they had no other option. Yeah.
And
So,
it is connected to previous beliefs in paganism.
well, they kept a connection to their own belief system through this rhythm and through this dance. That was their only way of being able to handle it. Yeah? And somehow, this tradition was not pushed back by the white people. They said, okay, you can do that because you are singing a sacred song, a Christian song, and that's okay. They put some white rules on it, like the don't cross your feet, but otherwise they allowed the rhythm and they allowed the singing, and that was one way some African culture could be preserved. We haven't talked about the difference between slave treatment in America versus slave treatment in Cuba. In America, it was common for the Africans who were arriving to be separated from their families. Yeah? So if you came with your father and your wife and your 2 children, your children would be taken to this plantation, your father would be taken to that plantation, and you would be taken to this plantation, and your wife would be taken somewhere else. They separated the families. Yeah? They wanted to break the resistance of the Africans by destroying the family ties and by destroying all the ethnic ties. Yeah? In the US,
Да,
in the US.
в Америке, да, вот отношение к привозным рабам было разным. То есть в Америке обязательно разделяли семью. Если приезжала там семья, муж, жена, дети и отец, всех по разным плантациям обязательно разбрасывались, чтобы сломить их вот дух сопротивления. А на Кубе, очевидно, было иначе.
And because so many different ethnic groups were brought to the US, it happened often that on a plantation you'd have maybe 40 slaves, and they might not even be able to talk to each other because they were all from different ethnic groups who did not speak the same language. That was one of the ways that the culture was lost, because all of a sudden there were people, they were all black and they were all from Africa, but they couldn't speak to each other. They didn't share a language. They shared, a basic home continent, but not really the same culture. So they had to learn how to even speak to each other in English often. That's a very, very, very deep concept that people also don't realize. That African is not equal African. There were so many different nations that often they couldn't even communicate. And imagine the frustration of a group of people who are all there against their will, and they can't even talk to each other. Often they were from tribes who were at war. That happened too. Okay, so all these things happened in America.
Тут трагедия заключается в том, что люди, допустим, 40 человек, если работают на плантации, могли быть перевезены из различных регионов Африки, из различных племен, и даже не могли друг с другом общаться, потому что у них у всех были разные языки, и таким образом они теряли культуру, и часто единственным языком общения мог стать английский. Мы сегодня, допустим, это не осознаем, а на самом деле люди, уровень их фрустрации, вот их тяжести положения заключался в том, что они даже не могли друг с другом поговорить,
And that's why the ring shout became such an important thing, because this rhythm and this form of spiritual expression had enough commonality with all of the black people that everybody agreed, okay, we can do that, we can all jam on this.
Именно вследствие этого ring shout приобрел такую популярность, потому что в нем содержалось что-то общее для них, для всех, и они могли объединиться именно в нем.
Did we answer the question? I forget who was the last question. Oh no, I was talking. Blah. Let me show you one more ring shout video where you see the foot movement, where they're doing the shuffle and all that stuff.
Еще одно видео из ring shout, там где сейчас увидим, как они шафлят ногами.
Just watch the move,
Посмотрите на движение.
There's your shim sham right there.
Шим-шам, пожалуйста.
Toe, heel, heel. Shim sham.
И да, и в кругу как шумшами тоже. Это
Here's your shuffle. Here's your shuffle.
Вот шафл.
Yeah? And these women are not tap dancers.
И эти женщины, они да,
They have
не
no idea about
танцуют.
tap dancing.
Where are those women from?
They are from some islands off the coast of Georgia.
Они с каких-то островов неподалеку от штата Джорджия.
In the Atlantic Ocean.
В Атлантическом океане.
Yeah. And on these islands, the African traditions were preserved because only Africans lived on these islands. The white people didn't want to move there.
И вот эта вот традиция, она сохранилась только на вот этих островах, потому что там жили только черные, белые не хотели жить на этих островах.
And because the islands were not desirable to the white people, they left them to the black people. So they were kind of isolated, but also could maintain their own traditions with no restrictions or with less restrictions.
Ну и поскольку их там немножко оставили самих себе на усмотрение, они смогли сохранить вот эту вот традицию без каких-то ограничений и контроля.
So these people are a little bit like a time capsule.
Они сохранились как это в капсуле временной, в машине времени.
Yeah.
What's the name of the island?
The Geechee Gullah Islands. Geechee Gullah. Yeah. Geechee Gullah Islands. A very interesting name. Okay, that's what I wanted to show about the ring shout, just so you see the movement and you hear the vibe and you see the thing with the stick and everything.
The video is called Plantation Dance Ring Shout.
Plantation Dance Ring Shout. It's on the document also. Yeah, these links are all on that document.
Вот эти ссылки все в документе, которые у Федора.
Yeah, I call this, the document is called Ring Shout, and I have a little bit about tap history, about Ring Shout. Then I put the text of Yes Ma'am, Feed My Cow, and I put some stuff about the minstrels and the history of 5 points. Are you familiar with the meaning of 5 points in New York City? No. Okay.
Все это есть в секретном документе, который, надеюсь, мы к нему получим доступ.
Yeah. So now we're talking tap dance history. Yeah? The reason why a lot of black people came north from the south is, number one, to escape from slavery, and number two, to find work. Yeah? They were not the only people who came there to find work. In 1848, Ireland had the big potato famine. Yeah? All the potatoes were eaten by insects, and they had no potatoes, and it was terrible. A lot of people died of starvation in Ireland. So thousands and thousands of Irish people came to New York City. They were not welcome, just like the black people.
Но тут надо сказать, почему афроамериканцы стали массово тянуться на север, потому что в поисках свободы, в поисках работы, и надо упомянуть еще голод 1848 года, случившийся в Ирландии, когда люди умирали тысячами от голода, и многие переезжали в Америку как бы вынужденно, их там тоже никто не ждал, не приветствовал, так же, как и афроамериканцев.
So, for this time period, all of a sudden you had two ethnic groups that were new to the United States, or new to New York City, let's say, the Irish people and the black people, and they were hated by whoever was already living there. The American people did not want the Irish at all. No. They hated them. Because also the Irish were Catholic. The Irish were Catholic, and the Americans were all Protestant. So there was a religious issue, and then the black people were just black. That was terrible enough. So all the people who were not liked had to move into the same area, the worst area, where the worst buildings, no heating, no sanitation, terrible circumstances, and they had to live in close quarters with each other. So they would also witness each other's party music and each other's leisure activities, including dancing, singing, fiddle playing, and whatever. So that's how the cultures started coming closer together, and then one would start imitating the other. And black people were already famous for imitating white plantation dances. And in this case, then they started imitating the Irish people and how they made sounds with their feet. And that was the birth of tap dance. Huh?
Тут надо сказать, что ирландцы и афроамериканцы, да, когда приехали в Нью-Йорк, их, в общем-то, никто там не ждал и не приветствовал с распростертыми объятиями, поэтому им пришлось селиться в самых таких трущобных районах, надо сказать, во многом потому, что так называемые коренные американцы, которые там уже жили, они были протестантами, ирландцы были католиками, то есть у них на религиозной почве были разногласия, ну а черные они уже просто потому, что черные вызывали отвращение. Вот, и надо сказать, что вот тесное сожительство двух этнических групп ирландцев и чернокожих родило очень интересное такое культурное заимствование, потому что они, живя вместе, часто наблюдали музыку на вечеринках друг у друга. Черные очень быстро стали копировать танцевальные стили, скажем, и танцы белых на плантациях, и они смотрели, как ирландцы танцуют, значит, свои танцы, и когда они стали копировать вот эти вот, скажем, ритмический танец ирландский, так, в общем-то, можно сказать, что и родился тэп.
And this neighborhood where all the poor people lived was called 5 Points. And that was downtown New York City in Manhattan, in the area now approximately where Wall Street is. Now if you go to Manhattan, if you go to the main courthouse, the federal courthouse building, is right on the square that used to be called 5 Points. It's very close to the municipal building, where all the government buildings are in New York City. That was the area where all the poor people lived, and there were major gang wars going on between the Americans and the Irish people and the black people. If you've seen the movie Gangs of New York, that movie is all about that. In the movie, they have a very interesting scene that actually talks about tap, where Daniel Day-Lewis sees a black guy dancing on a table in a bar, and he sees him tap dance, and then he says to his friends, look at this gook. You know, he calls him with a derogatory name. Look at this funny black guy. Only in America can this happen, that a person from Africa starts dancing like an Irish guy, and makes it look good. And it's kind of interesting. That's why we're proud to be American. So that's like the key point in that movie. It's very interesting. It's not the greatest movie, but it is an interesting movie. And 5 Points describes this square right in front of the courthouse in New York, where 5 streets come together. 5 main streets come together. That's why it's called 5 Points. And this was the central place where these people were living, and there was a lot of fighting going on there. It was very violent, and it was very important in the history of New York, because, you know, all these people from different countries were pushing and pulling for control. So that's why 5 Points is very important in the history of tap dance, and in the history of the United States, frankly, definitely.
We got 5 points too.
В общем, в Нью-Йорке, да, есть культовое место, называемое 5 углов, находится в центре города. Очень часто панорама города начинается оттуда, да, как у нас показывают, да, держат стрелку Васильского острова, так вот у них эти 5 углов. И надо сказать, что там очень часто сходились различные банды. Вот кто смотрел фильм, да, «Банды Нью-Йорка», может быть, в историческом плане он очень подробно, так близко отражает те времена, когда и группировки различные, и люди, которые, да, власть хотели как-то захватить. В общем, именно там устраивали все разборки. Вот. И один из героев, прослушала, как зовут, да, Дэниел Дэ-Льюис, вот он говорит, что вот посмотри на этого черного чувака, который танцует на столе, да, это только в Америке может быть, что черный изображает танец ирландцев, и у него это классно получается. Вот за это мы должны гордиться вот американской культурой.
there were, around this time period, 1830s, 1840s, there were some very, very important riots, yeah, like big demonstrations, big fights about labor laws, where people, people who were working at the boats at the harbor were fighting for more rights, and the policemen and the fire brigades, they were all controlled either by the Irish or by the Italians, and they were constantly at war with each other. So this period is very important in the history of New York City and this area, and nobody usually talks about that.
В 1840-е годы произошел целый ряд таких вот стычек, столкновений, забастовок, связанных с тем, что то рабочие выступали за свои права и повышение зарплаты тех, кто работали в доках, то, скажем так, контролируемые то итальянской, то ирландской мафией, значит, пожарные бригады или полицейские там сталкивались, были национальные там разборки. Ну, в общем, об этом обычно не любят говорить, но, в общем, это сыграло свою роль исторически для вот этого квартала.
Oh yeah, 5 minutes, yeah. Okay.
Is chancleta, Cuban chancleta, is somehow connected with tap dancing?
The Cuban chancletas are not really connected with tap dancing. It's just another percussive expression that the Cubans figured out because they made these chancletas, which are sandals, for themselves out of wood and a leather strap. They're very, very crude, and they're just to basically not walk directly in the mud. They're basically just, a piece of wood about this high to be sure that your feet don't get quite as dirty. Yeah? And somebody at some point figured out that when you walk on stone and you hit the chancletas on the floor, it's a loud smack. Yeah? I can show you some chancletas thing here. Hold on.
Здесь традиционная кубинская обувь, чанклетас, деревянные сандалии такие. И кубинцы, когда, в общем-то, догадались, что они могут быть использованы для перкуссионных целей, то стали, вот, в общем, ими пользоваться как музыкальным инструментом. Вот если сейчас Максу удастся найти какое-то видео показательное для нас, он нам покажет.
Hold on, that'll take me a second.
Anybody have another question? I'm looking for the.
Можно вопрос свободно? В истории степа очень часто говорится, что в Америке перемешались вот ирландская джига, английский клуб-дэнс и суданские, африканские танцы. Какие именно суданские танцы имеете в виду?
What's the question?
Судан, он не совсем так, что было.
Ну, по крайней мере, в истории степа я такое встречал. И второй вопрос по поводу вот этой байки, по поводу относительно того, что у африканских рабов отнимали барабаны, чтобы они не перестукивались там друг с другом, и поэтому они стали стучать ногами. Где это происходило и было ли на самом деле что-то такое?
Okay, two questions from Evgeny.
Okay.
First question. The history of tap dance, in history of tap dance, it is often said that tap has roots in three sources. So firstly, Irish jigger, secondly,
Clog dance? English clog dance.
English clog dance.
Clog dance and Sudan dance.
English and Sudan dance.
Sudanese from Sudan.
Are you sure?
I don't really know about the Sudanese
Точно
connection.
ты ничего не путаешь. Это Аравийский полуостров, это как бы не совсем как
Я встречал такой несколько раз.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean English clog dancing is definitely also in the mix. Yeah, I couldn't tell you specifically what comes from clog dancing compared to Irish dancing. You know.
А какие из африканских танцев в большей степени повлияли? То есть
So if we do speak about roots, what could be the most influencing? If we speak about traditional African dance, like that might
What kind?
influence tap dance, yeah. What kind?
It's difficult to say because in the United States, as I said, the ethnic groups were broken up. Yeah. So it is very difficult to know which nation or which specific culture contributed what to the American culture. You know, after 1806, everybody who was born was basically American because they were all born on American soil and they had already forgotten a large part of their African heritage. Yeah? So that's what makes it more difficult to trace back exactly where things come from. Yeah?
На сегодняшний день очень сложно сказать, какая именно часть африканской культуры, какая именно племя, да, принесло больше, скажем, да, для тэп-дэнса, потому что, во-первых, как уже Макс говорил, многие племена смешались, да, и многих разбивали, размещали на разных плантациях, потом все уже, кто родились после 1806 года, уже были американцами, и по большей части они забыли свое наследие африканское.
Yeah.
Так что сегодня очень сложно вообще говорить о каких-то конкретных корнях.
So that's why it's very difficult to really say exactly what comes from where. In Cuba, however, the practice was different. In Cuba, the plantation owners decided to keep the families together and not separate the tribes from each other. That's why you are able to now see more clearly that this is Yoruba culture, this is Congo culture, this is Arara culture, this is Ashanti culture. Yeah? They were able to maintain their culture on the plantation because they were given a place to practice their culture called the cabildo. Yeah? That was a house, a small house on the plantation, somewhere in the back, where the Africans could get together and practice their own culture, away from the white people. Yeah? That's the key.
Ну, поскольку на Кубе не было традиции разделения семей и племен, то есть разрешали семьям и племенам оставаться на одной плантации и разрешали им практиковать свою культуру в домиках, специальных отведенных для этого под названием кабильо, которые были подальше от руководства, и они там могли встречаться и практиковать культуру, то мы можем сегодня более четко сказать, что вот эта культура, там, допустим, Конго, это культура Арара, это культура Yoruba.
Yeah. So they were allowed to only bring their African culture out into the white public one day a year, and that was the King's Day, January 6th. Three Kings Day, Dia de los Reyes, which was a day of parade and celebration for the Africans. And on that day, they would get all the costumes, the drums, all the cultural implements that identified their culture, and they would bring it out and carry it through the streets and sing their Yoruba songs and play their Yoruba drums, their Yesa drums, their Abakwa, all that. Yeah? Publicly, only one day, and then it had to go back into that little cabildo house.
Только один день в году было разрешено показывать свою культуру перед белыми на обществе. Это 6 января, день 3 царей, когда им разрешалось одевать костюмы, барабанить в барабаны, выходить на улицы и идти шествием.
Yeah. So that difference between the American practice and the Cuban practice of handling the Africans is very, very important to understand why Cuban music sounds the way it sounds. Because it has the Cuban Africans were able to maintain more of their culture. In America, it was much more difficult to remain African in a way. They all became African American very quickly, which was a bigger problem or a big challenge culturally for the identity.
Вот разница в том, как было организовано, скажем, существование, да, рабов на американском континенте и на Кубе, и говорит нам о том, что в Америке очень быстро африканцы стали афроамериканцами, и им было гораздо труднее сохранить свою идентичность.
Okay.
И еще вопрос по поводу барабанов и
Женя's second question was about, is it true that because those slaves, they were taking away their drums, not to give them the opportunity to keep their religion, they started tapping instead of using the drums?
Yeah, that was definitely one reason, because they didn't have their usual instruments to express themselves musically. They used whatever they had, and that was basically just their feet and their hands. Yeah.
Ну, это, да, то есть так и есть, поскольку требовалось самовыражение, а инструменты невозможно было использовать, то они стали использовать все, что было под рукой, то есть свое тело, руки, ноги.
And in Cuba, the same fact that they had no drums was the reason why they started using boxes, cajon.
На Кубе тоже было гонение на традиционную культуру, на румбу, как это ни странно, и как бы отбирали все конги, и, соответственно, это было время, когда люди стали играть на ящиках, и появился инструмент кахон.
Мы говорим о Кубе и о Америке, и в Африке сама культура сохранилась.
So, can you find culture that we've been discussing now in Africa nowadays? So, do those tribes still preserve similar cultural patterns?
Yes, definitely. The Yoruba culture is very strong. So Yoruba culture still thrives in Nigeria. Yeah. In Nigeria mostly. In Nigeria.
То есть в Африке, конечно, на сегодняшний день Yoruba культуру можно найти, она процветает в Нигерии, пожалуйста.
And Nigeria is a huge country. It's bigger than Europe.
Нигерия,
it's huge.
Больше Европы по площади, огромная страна, в
общем-то. But the bata drums, for instance, bata drums in Yoruba land, in Nigeria, are played slightly differently than in Cuba. The Cuban bata drums are bigger than actual Nigerian bata drums. In Cuba, they only play 3. In Nigeria, they play up to 6. Yeah. In Nigeria, they stand up. They have the drums around their neck, and they play standing. In Cuba, they play sitting down. They say, this is not proven by anybody, but most people agree that probably they were so tired from working that when they came to play the drums, they had to sit down. That's one explanation. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard.
Ну вот, например, если мы сравним бата, то, скажем, кубинские, да, бата, Yoruba, там 3 барабана, а в современной Нигерии используется 6. И в Нигерии они играют стоя, тогда как на Кубе сидя. И существует такое объяснение, что рабы настолько были уставшие после работы, что они просто не могли стоя играть, им приходилось сидеть, когда они уже добирались до своего вот этого домика, где им разрешалось поиграть.
Also in Yoruba, in Nigeria, they play the drums not with their hands usually, they play them with leather straps, with pieces of leather. Yeah, so they have a piece of leather in their hand, and they snap that onto the drum. So that saves your hands. In Cuba, everybody plays with their hands.
В Нигерии они играют кусочками кожи, которыми они ударяют о барабан. Это сохраняется, ладонь сохраняет руки. А на Кубе играют, конечно, ладонями, руками.
Does that answer your question? Pretty much, yeah. So, Cuban music and Yoruba music in Cuba, because of the 400 years of development, has taken a slightly different path. But people from Nigeria do recognize the Yoruba elements in Cuban music. And even when I perform sometimes, I've performed in Austria or in places in Europe, and then on occasion I've had some priests from Nigeria, Christian priests from Nigeria, and they see me perform and they hear me sing, and they go, wow, he sounds just like my cousin from this region over there, he has this specific accent, because I learned the stuff from being in Cuba, and they sing in a specific way that maybe only specific people in Nigeria speak. So it's very interesting to connect to modern Nigeria and modern Yoruba culture when you are dealing with Cuban Yoruba, let's say. It's different, but it's the same roots.
Вот Макс говорит, что современные нигерийцы, они могут опознать нигерийскую культуру Йоруба, и когда Макс выступал с концертом, то на концерт пришел нигерийский священник, и потом подошел и сказал, что он звучит прям так, как мой там племянник, значит, с таким же акцентом поет, надо же, классно как. То есть он опознал вот нигерийский акцент, хотя Макс учил от кубинских, да, музыкантов, скажем так, манеру исполнения каких-то песен и акцент, соответственно.
У нас есть вопрос, который мы все избежали. Мужчины танцуют или не танцуют?
The question is very simple. Should a true man dance?
Oh, should real men dance?
I will answer with a resounding yes.
Да.
I have a question about your recent or not recent. So you've taken up arranging classical music, and how and why do you do it, and what do you see in it, in classical music, in connection to tap dance, and how do you interest the public in it?
The reason for me to do classical music and to work with classical orchestras and musicians is that I am a trained musician. I've been playing music since I was a teenager professionally. Drum set, and a little bit of vibraphone, balafone, a little bit piano.
You, Peter.
And I was always involved in live music, always. Even though I was studying theater and I became an actor and I worked, in things that didn't directly connect to music also, but I never stopped playing. And when I was studying music in New York, I had to study also classical music. I wanted to only study jazz, but in the school they said, no, in the jazz program you have to first learn classical harmony, solfege, ear training, and counterpoint before you go into jazz theory and harmony. And I was not happy when I heard that. I was very scared. Because I never really had dealt with classical music on any deep level. But I am now very happy because this training enabled me to start understanding music on a completely different level. And it gave me the opportunity to become who I am now. Because of my training and my deeper interest in music and making music, I became fascinated with the concept of playing music, not only as a drum set player, but also playing music as a tap dancer, not just in the jazz improvised context, but also in the composing and arranging context. So that when I started working with classical musicians, they were fascinated by the fact that I can read music. And that I would, they asked me, well, okay, so we did some crazy projects in New York, yeah? And one guy asked me, hey, we would like to do this piece by Stravinsky. I have this crazy idea. It's called the Soldier's Tale, l'histoire du soldat. Would you be able to do something with this? And I heard Stravinsky and I shit my pants. I was like, what? Are you kidding, Stravinsky? But then I said, wow, okay, this is my chance to really prove myself. Can I handle real hardcore classical music? And I saw my opportunity and I said, okay, I'm going to try to figure this out. So I went, I don't know if, does everybody know L'Histoire du Soldat by Stravinsky? It's a standard chamber music work by Igor Stravinsky that's beautiful and written for a 7-piece chamber orchestra. Yeah? With clarinet, trumpet, violin, cello, bass, bassoon, and percussion. Number 7 is percussion. So there's a very, very detailed score for the percussion player. And we were going to do the trio version with just clarinet, violin, and piano that Stravinsky wrote himself, just orchestrating, reorchestrating from the septet to the trio. It's the same music, only a shorter version. And I decided I am going to learn by heart the percussion score, every note, and I'm going to tap dance exactly what Stravinsky wrote, but just with the trio version. So that's what I did. All the musicians were like, "Are you crazy?" But I did it, and when I did it, they were all like, "Wow, okay, that's very serious." It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life, but it worked. And that was the beginning of this exploration. So now I do a lot of this. And I have people composing music for me. It's often very complex, very difficult, but I just get in the studio and I read the music, I learn it, I figure out how to do it. And then I perform, and I'm the only person in the world who does that. So that's my pride. I'm happy about it. Sorry?
Is it possible to see a video?
Okay. I have one video of one of those pieces. It's not the Stravinsky, that one I don't have on video. But another piece that was composed for me by a Colombian friend of mine. The piece is called Lucid Dream, and it's based on Latin music, but it's a string orchestra piece. Yeah? The sound is not going to be good, that's the only, but you get a general idea.
Ну, надеюсь, что вкратце только тогда скажу, что Макс, значит, с симфоническим оркестром он выступает, и одним из таких вызовов, да, в его карьере было, когда ему предложили выступить с музыкальным трио, да, под Стравинского, и он выучил всю перкуссионную партию, соответственно, и музыканты были поражены, и он станцевал, значит, в тэповых ботинках, да, всю партию перкуссии, и все были под впечатлением, и с тех пор композиторы, в общем-то, пишут произведения специально для Макса и оркестра, и он уже не один раз вот выступал, и сейчас он ищет видео, чтобы нам показать.
Okay. This is just the intro.
Позвольте я еще раз повторюсь, что эту партию, это как бы не джазовая импровизация, эту партию ее пишет композитор, то есть Макс выучивает эту партию, и это исполнение по нотам, и никто больше в мире так не работает.
Есть вопрос. Есть вопрос.
Max, did you see Russian movie Winter's Evening in the Gagri?
Yes, I've heard about
What do
it.
you think about
I've heard about it. I have not seen it. I have not seen it. I know that there's a tap dance scene in it. Yeah. I have heard that a lot of Russian people identify tap dance with this movie. And I know that that seems to be a little bit of an issue with the tap dancers. I don't know the movie, so I can't really speak to that. I have to watch it.
It's not the greatest one in Russia movie, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's good movie.
Good one, yeah.
Ты вопрос еще хотел. The movie is much better than dance.
The movie's better than the tap dance. Okay. In this, okay. Yeah. No, that's a serious hole in my education. I have to catch up on that. I will watch it. I will watch it and give you my opinion, definitely.
The question is, the guys from the web asking, was it allowed to play originally drums by women or only men?
Originally by the Africans?
Yep.
No. That was traditionally also a male thing. Yeah. With few exceptions, the pygmies in the Congo, they do have a more matriarchal culture. So in the pygmy culture, there is some female drumming in the history also. In Yoruba, no. Definitely not in Awakwa. That's a very strict thing. It's just tradition and chauvinism, you know. Yeah.
Надо перевести. Ну, пигми это пигмеи, да, поняли, да?
The short people.
Пигмеи, да. Их матриархат, поэтому там женщина может.
Я про работу с детьми, и вот, что меня поразило, когда мы разговаривали про то, танцует ли мужчина или нет, он сказал, что мужчины вообще не перестают танцевать никогда. И пошел разговор про колясочников. Те, кто с ограниченными возможностями во всеми городами. И он с ними работает, он работает с детьми. Мне интересно узнать, как это все происходит.
I was asking a question about your projects with children and disabled people.
Yes. Yeah. I love working with children. That's always been part of my job. I consider it part of my calling. And working with people who have challenges, physical and mental challenges, also has always been something that I really enjoy doing. I've performed many times for blind audiences, like the entire audience, blind or deaf, and I tell you there's nothing like that. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Because they seem to lack one sense, they make up much more with the rest of everything that they have. Deaf people who cannot hear, yeah.
So, can they dance?
They can dance, absolutely, yeah. I've taught deaf people in Cuba and in New York and in Austria, many different places. They learn by watching, by hearing the music, by putting their hands on the speaker, feeling the pulse, and also I can teach them, if they don't get it visually, I can teach them by teaching the rhythm like this.
Отличный ритм.
Yeah, no, you just do this.
Да, то есть вот Макс говорит, как он...
And they get it. Like, oh, physically, yeah, physically, by touching.
Визуально, либо они кладут руку на динамик, либо он на теле показывает.
Sorry?
The film Dancer by Luc Besson.
Luc Besson?
The film?
The
about the dead girl.
Movie.
Oh, the dead. Oh. I'm not sure I saw that. I have to also research that. Yeah. But yes, deaf people can definitely dance. Yes, absolutely. They feel the music, and they have their sense touch is so strong because of their lack of hearing that they hear way more than you think, just through the air. They feel it on their skin. They feel it through the surface of the floor. Yeah, and they can be incredible dancers. Yeah, it's really very, very interesting, and they love to learn. They love to study dancing. Absolutely, absolutely. And the same goes for kids with autism. Just now in Minsk, we had some children that came to rehearsal, autistic children that watched the rehearsal, and yes, they are a little bit difficult to deal with sometimes, but they love it. They love it, and then you answer some questions, or you go up to them and you show them the shoes, or you let them listen to an instrument up close, or let them touch it, and they're so happy, and you can tell that it makes a difference. I've also worked with people in wheelchairs who are quadriplegic, which means that they basically can only move maybe one arm or one leg, or sometimes only the head, yeah? But they can sing, and if they can move one part of their body and speak, they can make the coordination things happen that we did in class. And you wouldn't believe how happy it makes them, because they realize that they can do something special. And they realize that they are making music, even if it's just this.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's the most joyful feeling. Yeah, it's really great.
Deaf people,
Yeah.
they even can play piano.
Of course. Yeah. My sister used to be a therapist for children, and one of her students or patients became her sort of like almost adopted son. She didn't adopt him, but he's almost like part of our family, and we've spent many vacations with him. He is blind. He's not completely deaf, but he's blind, and he has what's it called? Epilepsy, yeah, and spasms. So he has a very hard time moving around. But when he gets to a piano, he plays piano like you would not believe. He learned. My sister helped find out that he was musically talented when he was about 9 years old, and then they found a piano teacher for him. And he became so happy and improved so much because of the piano. And he can play piano for hours. And he learns just by listening. And he plays almost every song the Beatles ever wrote. And he plays classical music, he plays jazz, he plays everything. And he loves it, So the limits of sense have nothing to do with your ability to express yourself. If you find somebody who is willing to take the time to find a way, that's all it takes.
Let's tell that for beginners class.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's always a challenge. Yeah.
May I say something?
Sure.
I just wanted to add something. A couple of years ago, I visited a concert of a deaf percussionist from Great Britain. I forgot her name, Gwendolyn somebody.
Oh, you mean Glennie, Evelyn Glennie. Oh yeah, she's a genius.
And she was advertised like, come to visit the bright percussionist solo with the orchestra, and she's barefoot. This is how she feels the music. And when I saw her, she was wearing high-heeled shoes, so no barefoot. And I was like, wow, how does she do this? And she played every single percussion instrument as a soloist with the orchestra. And that was amazing.
Yeah.
High heels is secret.
The secret high heels. Yeah. Evelyn Glennie is a special case. Special
her
case.
sixth sense or something.
Absolutely, yeah. No, she feels it through. She does feel it through the floor, but she has a little bit of hearing, and I've seen some interviews with her. She just has so much experience feeling it through the air. She can feel the music literally. She can feel it while it's happening, and she's so precise, so
I
precise.
couldn't believe my eyes.
Yes, she's really truly unbelievable. Yeah, that's why she's Dame Evelyn Glennie. They knighted her in England. Yeah, she's
Ей
fantastic.
присвоено рыцарское звание дама Эвелин Гленни за то, что вот она чувствует музыку как через воздух, просто по вибрации.
All right.
What about drink?
That's fine. Well then that leaves me with thank yous for everybody who came, and thanks for showing up, and thank you for your interest. I know the things I do are not necessarily what you usually expect from a tap dancer, but I'm happy that the people are open to this, and I think it's opportunity for me to grow and opportunity for everybody to find new things, and it certainly is very encouraging for me to see a new community of people who are not all tap dancers, and I find that very, very important, because only tap dancers doing stuff with tap dancers for tap dancers never goes anywhere. That's the truth. We need to reach out, and we need to find other people to communicate with. So the more different communities we can reach, the better for all of us. Because you've seen in all this history that the beautiful things happen sometimes because of ugly things. Ugly things happen, and then people from different communities are forced into a situation, and beautiful things come out. So why not have some beautiful situation, where people meet under beautiful circumstances like this, and then even more beautiful things can come out. That's my philosophy. So thank you everybody for coming. Casa Latina, you guys are fantastic. This is an amazing place. Thank you, Fedor. Thank you so much for helping. Thank you, Maria. This was awesome. I hope to see you all soon. Let's party.
Let's go!